As far as local bargaining, the way that I thought would be useful to talk about at this conference, or what I thought would be useful to talk about at this conference, is more about how it is that local bargaining played a role in organizing, or as an organizing tool for our local. So for us, I think we were in a really difficult position, having dealt with the lockdown, having dealt with online classes, having dealt with really alienating conditions and isolating conditions for a lot of our faculty members, an administration that for a time and continues to be very more with less oriented in their approach, very deficit model oriented in their approach, and often hostile towards faculty. We were in a pretty bad predicament, I think, in terms of our overall vibe as a unit. And I think a lot of that manifested in trust issues that we had between our leadership in the union and our membership between membership and management, between faculty and staff. And a lot of these divisions, I think, were being exploited by the practices of administration, of management, particularly, divisive tactics that involve sort of pitting students against faculty, staff against faculty, and contingent faculty, part-time faculty against full-time faculty. So for us, bargaining, it became really important for us to see bargaining as an organizing tool and a healing tool. And I think when we looked at bargaining, and whatever kind of bargaining modality that works for the local, but for us, it ended up shifting in a direction more of a more open bargaining scenario. And I think we came to realize that bargaining was about building power, not just meeting at the negotiating table, but actually building power in your unit. It was about assessing where you were at. It was about understanding what the weaknesses and strengths were, in your particular bargaining unit, in your membership, and what you needed to do to build membership. How involved you were with the most vulnerable members, in particular part-time and contingent faculty. That was a really important thing that we had to think about through this lens of negotiations, and using negotiations as a way to kind of get at these questions. What about healing wounds that already existed in the bargaining unit? Getting at questions like, does the membership trust you? Why or why not? How is it that we can think about bargaining as an opportunity and a tool to address these concerns we had about trust and creating more solidarity within our ranks so that we'd be effective at the table? And it was like a really introspective process for us, I think, as a unit. And then thinking about how bargaining is also about building membership, getting your members in places where they're going to be seeing each other, they're going to be more likely to engage and understand in ways that they haven't understood before the importance of solidarity and recognizing what's at stake, especially in this sort of, I don't want to call it post-COVID, but this sort of pandemic world that we're living in. And I think when we talk about adjuncts, for us, it was really understanding that the concerns that we had with the adjunct piece of this puzzle were not just about adjuncts. That the vulnerability that adjuncts were facing, the contingency, the reality of their contingency, was really about fighting against contingency for all faculty, right? It was really about fighting, in a larger sense, contingency for all workers. And I think that through this bargaining process and the way that we approached it, we were able to open up discussions that kind of allowed us to reimagine our circumstances and what we could do and how we could approach adjuncts in a different kind of way. And it became more of a unionizing process, even more so than an organizing process. And we started to look at it like, hey, unions are not this static institution, and that bargaining is a process by which you can continue to unionize, always be unionizing in this process. And when we began to do that, a lot of the old wounds and all these kind of divisive stuff that existed came out in a way that was productive, and we were able to sort of address it because we started to build trust in the way that we went about our negotiations. And we did this in an open way. We opted for open bargaining, which was a really difficult, it was a difficult task for us to get to that point where we were there. but it also allowed us to open up conversations that we couldn't before, to see each other in different ways. And for folks who are normally alienated from this process, to see the process in ways they never had seen it before. And that was really crucial for part-time faculty. And I know as a former adjunct for many years, it's hard enough to know that you even have a union representing you. It's hard enough to even know who they are. You know, it's hard enough to know that you're the name of your union or what the initials of your local are and all that stuff. And now, because of all the hard struggles of folks in the past at ACEA and other locals out there, we had an adjunct rep. She's here today, Kate Modick, and she does amazing work. But the fact that we had a rep, the fact that in this open bargaining scenario, adjuncts could see who were organizing, could see this rep out there, could see their voices at the table in a meaningful way, could see people fighting for them and looking out for them in a meaningful, substantive way, was a huge organizing benefit for us. It was a huge healing process for us. And it was not just talking about solidarity, but also witnessing it. And I think it helped us move from a certain kind of consciousness to another kind of consciousness, you know, and where we started to see all of these complicated, seemingly divisive things that happen between staff and faculty and part-time and full-time faculty. We started to see things in a different way, where we realized that our fates were tied together. And if we were going to make sure that we had gains for some of us, we had to make sure we were thinking about how this was going to be gains for all of us. And that began to emerge almost organically out of this process of rethinking our bargaining strategy and our bargaining modality. You know, and I think addressing those things that happen with management, as far as like the sort of divisive tactics that were happening, the pay disparity with adjuncts, how serving students became weaponized often by administrators and management as a way to sort of break us down. You know, all these things resulted in a lack of solidarity at many moments. But through this process of viewing bargaining as an organizing strategy, as a unionizing strategy, thinking about the union as something living that has to keep being recreated through our energy and solidarity, a lot of those things were addressed in healthy ways and productive ways, and we got to move the needle with real outcomes in these past negotiations. And that was a tremendous, tremendous benefit for our faculty, and I think the climate on campus as a whole, and that includes all workers.
Wow, that was really powerful. Thank you.